that a professor at the University of Pennsylvania asked a group of people who had categorized themselves as severely depressed. He wanted to help them become happier. I'm here to talk about happiness. And so he gave them one happiness-enhancing strategy. And that strategy was at the end of each day to recall and write down 3 good things that happened that day. What they found after 15 days, just 15 days of doing this one strategy of writing down 3 good things that happened that day, 94% of them went from categorizing themselves as severely depressed to categorizing themselves as only moderately or mildly depressed. So I was out here this morning welcoming some of you in, and I stopped my teacher and I said, tell me 3 good things about being a teacher. She gave me a great big smile and she said, June, July, and August. I said, oh, I'm so glad you're going to be in my session. Whoop, whoop. Now, whoop is the universal cry for joy and excitement. And I want us to whoop it up. It is the start of the school year. This is the kickoff. So we're just going to have some fun, whoop it up, and I want you to practice, all right? So I'm going to go whoop, whoop, and then you're going to do it right after me, right? Let's try it. Whoop, whoop. Whoop, whoop. That's pretty good. Let's do it again. Put those hand motions in there if you feel like it. Whoop, whoop. All right. So anytime you hear something today that you really like, that you agree with, you think is spot on, you just give a little whoop, whoop, all right? Now, truth is, there are a lot of people out there who are not happy. There are some people who are even miserable. And the only time they're happy is when they are miserable. You might know some of those people. I always say, yeah, whoop, whoop. I always say some people light up a room when they walk into it. Some people light up a room when they walk out of it. That's those people. Yeah. The fact is that most of us crave more happiness, more fun, more joy in our lives. How many of you could use more fun in your life? Yeah, whoop, whoop, look around. Yeah, most of us. Most of us want more fun in our lives, and there's a good reason for that. Science can now document that when we are happy and we are having fun, there are all kinds of health benefits to it. It decreases our stress and it lowers our blood pressure. It actually helps our heart function. It increases the production of endorphins, and it increases the cancer-fighting T cells that our body produces just by having fun and being happy. Now, I'm sure some of you watch TV and you see the TV commercials for prescriptions. Can you imagine if we took a pill that gave us all of those benefits? Can you imagine what the side effects would be? Now, side effects may include blurred vision, constipation, drying out, hair loss, insomnia, thoughts of suicide, renal failure. Renal failure? I don't even know where my renal is. I just know I would rather be happy and have some fun than have it fail. And that's what happiness can do for us. So we know it's good for us personally, but why worry about happiness at work? Why worry about happiness in your school district, in your school, in your classroom? Well, I think one of the most important things is that we will spend 1/3 of our lives at work. So that's a significant portion of your life that you're going to be in the classroom, that you're going to be teaching, or in some other capacity in this district. So it's worth the effort for 1/3 of our lives to put some effort into being happy at work. But let's look, are we having a...
We accidentally turned off this.
They accidentally turned off my... Where is that? You guys are teachers. That was a teachable moment, right? We just had to roll with it. Oh, wait, now I forgot my clicker. All right. Where's my clicker? Okay. So, it matters. Happiness matters at work because we're going to spend 1/3 of our lives there. But let's take a look. Let's see if it's going to work. Let's take a look at some of the hard numbers of why happiness matters. 10% more productive, or 12% more productive, miss 10 times less work, and companies, schools with happy employees outperform the competition by 20%. What if Russellville schools can outperform the competition by 20% just by getting their teachers happier? Yeah. What if in your classroom You take what you learned today, you slip it into the curriculum through the back door, you teach your students to be happier, and their performance goes up by 20%. Whoop, whoop! Yeah, and I'll tell you, you guys have already got a lot going on because that band and that choir, how many people did that bring a tear to your eye? Those kids singing. Man, that was beautiful. And what happens at work affects you at home. That's why after a great summer vacation, after a great weekend with your family, you come back to school and you're ready to go. You're excited, you're reinvigorated. And the same thing, if you have a horrible day at work and you can't figure out how to turn that around, if you're miserable in your job, then when you walk through the door at the end of the day, you're no good to the people that really matter in your life. So I think it's important that we learn to be happy. Today I'm going to share with you the factors that affect our happiness, how we determine our happiness, and then I'm giving you 5 concrete strategies that you can use to become happier. You ready to get started? Okay, that was a little underwhelming. You ready to get started? All right, I like it. So let's first look at what factors determine our happiness. There are multiple studies that they have done where the premise was that 90% of our happiness is going to be based on our circumstances. That kind of makes sense, you know? What they have found out is that only 10% of our happiness is based on our circumstances. 10%. 90% is based on how we process those circumstances. So those people that have IBHW disease, it's a tough one. I'll be happy when disease, you know, I'll be happy when I lose weight, find the perfect partner, make more money, move into a bigger house, get a promotion. That's only 10% of your happiness. 10%. Now, the other portion of your happiness is, oh wait, we gotta go back, how they figured out that only 10% of your happiness is based on they studied lottery winners. What they found with lottery winners is that that lottery winners went back to how happy they were within a year afterwards, except for this guy, right? This guy, he found his perfect mate, so not him. His life changed forever after winning the lottery. But they studied lottery winners and found that really winning the lottery, most of us think, man, if we win the lottery, whew, I'd be happy then. It didn't work for anybody but him. So the other portion of our happiness, 50%, genetically kind of encoded set point. That set point comes from your parents. It's something you're born with. It is not based on your circumstance or your upbringing. Interestingly enough, they determined this the whole set point theory by studying twins. It didn't matter if they had been brought up in totally different parts of the world, totally different types of upbringing. There's basically genetic set point that we all have, just kind of like we all kind of have a kind of a weight set point. When it comes to having a set point, I happen to win the lottery because my mama was a school teacher, 44 years. My daddy was a minister, 51 years. They loved their professions. They had a really positive outlook on the world and knew that they could make a difference. So I was born with a pretty high happiness set point. I was also born, unfortunately, with a pretty high weight set point. I came out of the womb at a size 16, and I've been trying to work my way back down. We all know those people who can eat anything, never have to exercise, and they're no bigger, no rail. And those people we love to hate. Yeah. Well, we all have it. We all have a happiness set point as well, which is really, mine's high, and that's good since I'm a happiness speaker. Do not ask me to speak at the Jimmy Craig convention, is all I'm saying. All right. And then 40%, the good news is that 40% of our happiness set point is based on intentional activities. the actions that we take, what we can do to increase or decrease our happiness set point. You look at that pie and you think, well, 40% is intentional, 40% we control. But I want you to think about your life. I want you to think about if you had 40% more money. Think about if you had 40% less money. Think about if you had 40% more health problems, aches and pains than you currently do. Think about if you had 40% less health problems. Think about if Dr. Gocher came to you and said, you guys are going to have 40% more students in your classrooms. Think if Dr. Gocher came to you and said you get 40% less students in your classroom. So 40% can make a huge impact. And we have direct control over 40% of our happiness. 40%. So let's look at what factors we can directly affect that are going to make up that happiness. What I want to do first is determine how many, where you are in the happiness scale. Now, I have a lot of happiness heroes. One of them is Dr. Sonia Lyubomirsky. She is a Russian immigrant. She has spent 35 years studying happiness. And when I did all the research and I started to study happiness 10, 12 years ago, she really stood out to me as somebody whose work I admired. And she has created all these happiness indexes, happiness evaluations, happiness surveys, all this stuff to evaluate where your happiness is. Now, we could have done one of those this morning, but again, with her brilliant mind, it would have taken us most of the morning to complete the survey and score it. So in all the years that I've been doing this, I've come up with my own survey. Now, Dr. Lyubomirsky, this is her, I look up, she has a curriculum vitae. I just have a resume. I think they're kind of the same thing, but she has a curriculum vitae. But let me just point out one thing on her curriculum vitae. 38 pages. I didn't even know you could have a curriculum vitae. That's like a novel. 38 pages. So I want full disclosure here when you all do my happiness index. Here is my happiness index, okay? And it's pretty basic, right? It is one question. But I have found it's got about 90% accuracy, because most of us know where we are. This is my resume. One page, get it all on there. So here's my survey, but it actually works pretty, oh my goodness, darn well. So look at that and decide where you are. Where do you fit on the happiness scale? Now, if you look at that and you're very unhappy, I really seriously do want to encourage you to get some help. Get a counselor, find a therapist, find somebody you can talk to, because there are so many things that you can do to become happier. I also want to tell you you're not alone. Do you know that 15% of adults are depressed? 21% of women. Women are actually, there are more depressed women than men. So look 3 people to your right, 3 people to your left, and if it isn't you that's depressed, it's one of them, right? So, I mean, it's out there. So don't feel like you're alone if you've scored very unhappy. And make sure in this year you make one of your goals to get some support. The World Health Organization has said by the year 2020, that's only 2 years away, by 2020, 30% of adults will be afflicted with depression. It will become the second leading cause of death. So think about it, in 2 short years, if we don't spread the message of happiness, it potentially could be you just look to the person to your right, the person to the left, and it's one of the 3 of you. So again, get support if happiness is an issue for you. Now, let's get on to the important thing. You guys want to know 5 strategies for how to become happier? Whoop, whoop. Say, tell us how to become happier, Kim. I didn't hear you. Okay, don't yell. All right, so how to become happier. The first strategy I am going to teach you, if you want to be happy, is you have to see happy. You have to look for happiness. Every second of every day, our brain is exposed to 11 million bits of information. 11 million. our brain can only process 40,000. So out of that 11 million, we get to decide what 40,000 we're going to pay attention to. And if we want to be happier, we need to see happier and look for those 40,000 that are going to make us happy. Now, I got to tell you, it can be a little challenging because we live in a really negative world. CNN, most widely broadcast news station in the world. Have any of you watched CNN? Yeah, it is all negative. The Journal of Psychology says that up to 85% of the information that we're exposed to on a daily basis is negative. And I might venture to guess, as a school teacher, you probably don't have parents calling you up or emailing you saying, I just want to thank you for doing a great job. If my child's failing, I know it's his or her fault. They're not applying themselves. You're doing a great job. You guys get that all the time, don't you? Yeah. So we're exposed to a lot of negativity. And then this negativity gets reinforced by these subtle messages. I speak all over the country, and I have never been a place that these sayings have not been familiar. So let me know if you can help me complete any of these. You better save money for a... Right? We're our financial advisors. Yes? Did we do good? Okay. Save money for a rainy day. You better hope the other shoe doesn't fall or drop. And this is too good to be? Yeah. So we get these subtle messages that if things are good, don't trust it, don't expect it to last, it can change at any moment. So there's this pervasive negativity over our culture even, and not all cultures are like that. That is kind of, an American way of being. So we get these negative messages. And when we get those negative messages, what happens is we begin to think that that's the ratio of positive to negative in the world. And that's not really the case. There's far more positive. We just have to learn to focus our attention on those positive pieces instead of the other millions of negative pieces that are available for us. And when we start to get these negative messages, then we start to reinforce them. We reinforce them with our actions and with our words. So one of the things that happens when I was probably, 8 years ago, one of the ways that I reinforced negativity, my daughter came home. She had 7 classes. She had 6 A's and 1 D. What do you think the first thing out of my mouth was? Tell me about that D. I was like, oh man, I blew it. I focused on the negative. It's so easy to do. About 6, 7 years ago, decided I've always wanted to be a redhead. I don't know. Yeah, whoop, whoop. Lucky you. And so I dyed my hair red. I put a picture on Facebook. I got 143 positive comments about my red hair. My husband loved it. My kids thought it was cool. But one of my best friends, she said, I don't know, Kim, I think the coloring with your skin is really bad, and I think it makes you look old. Did I care about the 143 positive comments on Facebook? No, I stood in the mirror focusing on my skin tone, and if I should, so I eventually dyed it back. We tend to focus on the negative. And then we also reinforce it with our words. I kind of confess that, I tend to have a challenge with my weight, and I've had 5 children, and so I've struggled, with my weight, and I was talking about how hard it is to lose weight after a baby, and it was after a conference like this, and a woman came up to me, she said, I really could not lose weight after having a baby. I said, oh, I know how tough it is. I said, how old is your baby? She said, oh, he's in college now. Probably a little bit late. So negativity just becomes this pattern that we fall into. So I want to see if you guys have any patterns that you need to break. So go ahead and stand up. All right. So take your right hand, take it out to the side, bring it overhead, put it directly in front of you, make a fist, bring it to your chin. Bring it to your chin. Yeah. I see some of you doing the slide. All right, let's try another one. So again, it's a pattern, right? So important. I know so many of you as teachers know it, but we do what people do, not what they say. So I'm going to tell you a story, then I'm going to ask you a question, and the answer to the question is in the story. So you're a bus driver. At the first stop, somebody carrying a woman in a red coat gets on the bus. At the second stop, a man carrying a green bag gets off the bus. And at the third stop, two little boys with soccer balls get on the bus. Now here's the question, and the answer was in that story. What did the bus driver have for breakfast? All right, some of you know it. Let me tell you the story again and see if you can figure it out. You are a bus driver. Oh, what did the bus driver have for breakfast? Yes, whatever they were serving, right? So we tend, again, it's a pattern. We miss the first word in a story. All right, got one more. This is an intellectual one, all right? This one you're going to have to do math. Don't get out your phones, just do it in your head. So, I want you to take 1,000 and add 40. Take another 1,000 and add 30. Take another 1,000, add 20, add another 1,000, add 10. Shout out your answer.
5,000.
Okay, 5,000 seems to be the answer. I've done this with over 1 million people now. I'd say 98% of people get 5,000. The actual answer is 4,100. 1,000 plus 40 is 1,040. 1,000 plus another 1,000 plus 30 is 2,070. In fact, you know what I just figured out? Oh, tell them I'll call them right back. Is that this PowerPoint was not the one I wanted. I rearranged my order, so I figured out why my slides are not in the order I want. There's the slide that gives you the proof. 4,100 is the actual number. But again, a pattern that we have is to jump to the largest whole number. So negativity is also a pattern that we need to learn to break. Good job. Have a seat. So I realized that there were a lot of, and just in case you wanted to see it, since my slides are all messed up, there's my red hair picture. All right, so I realize that I have a lot of visual learners in the room. You know who you are. So I want to give you a demonstration on speaking positively, on seeing happy. So I need a volunteer to come up here. All right, we got a hand. Let's give her a round of applause. Okay. All right, oh, she's got on a tutu. That's so great. And a tiara. Man, I should have thought of the tiara thing. That's great. Come on up. Yeah. Woo! All right, what kind of fairy, are you a fairy princess hero?
I am a glitter hero.
Glitter hero. Let me guess, I bet you don't teach high school.
3rd grade.
Yeah, all right. So tell everybody your name and what school you teach at.
My name is Hope Statham, and I teach at Sequoia.
Let's give it up for Hope and her peeps over there. All right, so Hope, come right here in front of everybody. And I want you to lift are you right-handed or left? Okay, so put your right arm out, and I'm going to try to press it down and you resist. Okay, that's where we're starting. Okay, you can put your hand down. So I want you to look out at all of them. I'm going to give you this mic, and you're going to say, I am so happy. I love my life. Good things always happen to me. So use that hand to do it, okay?
What did you want me to say again? I was focusing on my arm.
They're a friendly crowd, really. So you're going to say, I am so happy. I love my life. Good things always happen to me.
I am so happy. I love my life, and good things always happen to me.
All right, so put your arm out and resist, okay? Okay, that's where we are. Now put your arm down, and you're going to look at it and you're going to say, I am absolutely miserable. Bad things always happen to me. Nothing ever works out.
I'm absolutely miserable. Good things never happen to me.
Nothing ever works out.
Nothing ever works out like my memory right now.
All right, so put your arm out and resist, okay?
Okay.
Yeah. words do. When Dr. Gocher speaks to you later, he's going to talk about Dr. Gocher, I've asked you 10 times. What's the word? Expectations. One of them is to use positive words, to think positively. Yeah, you just saw what negative words did to her. Whoosh, totally weakened her. So let's see what my words do to her. Hope, I think it is remarkable that you were brave enough to stand up in front of this huge crowd, having no idea what's going to be asked of you, in front of all of your peers, thinking you could have been embarrassed, horrible things could happen. You still raised your hand. Nobody else in here raised their hand that I saw. You said yes. I'll tell you, this school district and Sequoia School is lucky to have you. All right, and resist. Oh my gosh, okay, not going down. So you saw what my words did to her. You want to take it a step further? Now remember, I have a present for her. Okay, I have a present for her, and she did volunteer. But what I want you to do, we're going to make it okay, Hope. But just for the sake of this experiment, I want you to send her negative energy. No thought, no words. Just send her negative thoughts. Okay, like I'm going to step over here. So just send her those negative thoughts. She could have been a drama teacher. Okay. All right. Put your arm out and let's see what their thoughts did and resist, okay? That was your thoughts. Do you get what that means? It's not just what you say to your students, your coworkers. It's what you think about them. It's what you think about them when they walk in the door of your classroom. It's what you think about their parents when they call you or they come to teacher meetings. All right, it's your thoughts that brought her energy down, not your words. We have to be sure that every thought and every word that we hold and we speak and we think is for the highest good. That's what's going to make us happiest. And that's what's going to up everybody's strength. So we can't leave Hope in this position. So I want to ask everybody to stand up. We are going to give Hope a standing ovation. Your job is and resist, okay? Oh my gosh! Yeah. Yay! So it's our thoughts and our words that do that. My husband and I, let me see where my slides are. I have no idea what's coming next. All right, we're going to skip that. Okay, all right, we're good. We're good. We're going right here. Okay. Dr. Missouri Emoto is a research scientist who spent his life building a microscope that was big enough, that was powerful enough to take a photo of one molecule of water. And he's got all kinds of research online that you can find. But he took 2 bottles of water. On one bottle of water, he'd take the words, "I love you." On the other bottle of water, he'd take the words, "You are evil." Then he spoke those words to the water in each bottle, took a drop out, and took a picture. And these are the images. You know the whole black hole concept? Have you ever been around really negative people and it just makes you feel crazy? Yeah, that's what they're doing to your insides. Right? That negativity just really, really scatters us. So again, it's another reason, and our bodies are 80% water. So we've got to make sure that we're always holding the highest and the best. My husband and I have been married for 32 years, on and off. Yeah, thank you. I'm going to tell you a little bit more of the story later. But we actually endured a personal tragedy that was so devastating to both of us. I kind of liken it to 2 people with broken legs. We were both so hurt, we couldn't help each other back up. We got divorced and we went through counseling, went through therapy, huge proponent of it, and we were able to reconcile our differences and get back together. Well, the week before we were getting remarried in Maine, my husband was having his last appointment with Dr. Phillip, and Dr. Phillip asked him to bring me. When I arrived, he said, "You know, Kim, I asked Robert, to bring you because there's a story that I want you both to hear. It's about two friends, Jill and Martha. Now, they'd been friends since they were little girls. They got married the same summer, but there were huge differences in their marriage. Martha, she wasn't really happy in her marriage. She didn't really have much fun with her husband anymore. They weren't really connected. They just didn't really enjoy each other's company at all. Now, Jill, on the other hand, Jill still totally loved her husband. They had fun together. They had a lot in common. They really worked at their relationship. And Martha got a little sick and tired of hearing about how great Jill's husband was. So she said, Jill, why don't you just for 1 week keep a journal and see what you write down that he does that drives you crazy? Well, Jill agreed. She's like, I love my husband. But after 7 days, she had pages and pages of things this man did that drove her crazy. You know, he wouldn't listen to her. She had to tell him to do stuff twice. He forgot to pick up the kids. You know, there was a whole long laundry list of things, including the laundry. And right there, Dr. Phillip stops the story. He looks my husband square in the eye and says, Robert, do you know why I'm telling you this story? I was so glad he picked my husband because I had no idea where we were going. He said, I am telling you this story because whatever you look for in him, you will find. Whatever we look for in the people around us, we will find. If we want to be happy, we need to see happy. We need to look for the good that's around us. And it's always there. There's always something good to come out of every situation. All right, so strategy number 1, see happy. Say it for me. See happy. All right, strategy number 2 is engage. Engage. Engage in your life. Get excited. Have some fun. A lot of you did that this morning. You didn't wake up this morning and think, oh, I'm going to dress like a superhero. No, you were thinking of that last week. Some of you had to get t-shirts screen printed, right? So you got engaged. Like, what are we going to do to make this fun? That's part of how we get happy, is we fully engage in every aspect of our lives. Now, a lot of us have been taught to think that how we feel when we show up, when we get ready to engage, are we happy and are we excited, or are we just kind of like going through the motions? Well, I'll tell you, we have a choice in that. And I don't believe, a lot of us have been taught that whatever happened to us in the past, those past experiences, are to blame for how we feel right now. You know, we had a rotten childhood, a tough divorce, lots of health issues, then we have a reason that we can just show up and be negative and not really engage because life's been tough. But I don't think that's the case. I don't think where we are, how we show up, is based near as much on our past as it is on our future. And I want to give you a concrete example of this. This is for all my visual learners out there. All right, so I want you to get in your zone. I like to close my eyes because I'm a little ADD. You do whatever you need to if you want to just get in your zone. But we're going to do 2 different scenarios. First scenario, you've been given the keys to a car. It's an older model. It's kind of making a funny noise. You're meeting some people. You're not too sure of their integrity. You're going to a place you've never been. You've heard it's not a real great place. You're driving along, there's a big drop-off on the road, there's not a lot of other cars. You look down and you realize that you're almost out of gas. And then it starts to drizzle and you turn on the windshield wipers and they don't work. How do you feel? Shout it out. Scared, nervous, anxious. Yes, all right. So let's get rid of that. Let's give it a whole new energy. Let's give it a whoop whoop. Whoop whoop. That's your cue. You do it then. Whoop whoop. All right, whole new energy, all right? So get back in your zone. You've just been handed the keys to your dream car. If it's a convertible, the top is down. If it's a Jeep, the doors are off. It's freshly washed. Your favorite music's playing on the radio. You're going someplace that you've always wanted to go. You're meeting people that you love and adore and that support you. How do you feel right now? Shout it out. Excited. Awesome. Yes. So see, how you felt in the moment had nothing to do with your past. How you felt in the moment had to do with where you were going. When you felt like you didn't have enough and you weren't safe and you were around people that maybe were a little sketchy, you felt nervous, anxious, afraid. But when you were going someplace you were excited about, and you were striving for something, you felt happy, excited. See, it's not true that how we feel when we show up is based on what's happened to us in the past. That has validity, but what is more impactful is where we're going. And when we're excited about the future, that's when life really gets fun. You know, we all have a story. If you're old enough to have a seat in this auditorium, you've got a story. You've got a story of heartache, betrayal, loss, disappointment. And we either use those stories to define us, and that's who we become, or we use those stories to develop us into our true potential. And when we get focused on the future and where we're going, that's when we can really engage. Another strategy for engaging is setting goals. If you set goals this year, I want you to stand up. Stand up if you set goals, either in January for the start of the year, or if you set goals for the start of this school year. I didn't know. Whoa! Wow! I am impressed. Look around. Nice. Okay. Now, if you just thought your goals, okay, if you just thought your goals, you did not write them down, then have a seat. If you didn't write them down, have a seat. If you wrote them down, stay standing. All right. If you wrote them down and you have them someplace where you can see them every day, if you review your goals every day, stay standing. All right, let's look around the room. These are the people who have written their goals and reviewed them regularly. Let's give them a whoop. The fact of the matter is that 80% of people in the United States, do not set goals. So you guys clearly are way above the average. The 20% that do, 16% think them but don't write them down, 3% write them down, 1% write them down and review them regularly. And here's the significant thing about goals and happiness. When it comes to setting goals and happiness, it's in all the research that goals will make you happier. The exciting part is, it doesn't even matter if you make them. You don't even have to hit your goals. You don't even have to get your goals. It's just the fact that you have them. It allows us to be more engaged because you set those goals. So it's a great way to engage and get more excited and happier about life. So I want to encourage all of you. Every single one of you had said that you'd written goals. I always looked at the start of the new year. It's kind of like January 1st is the start of the new year, but today is the start of the new school year. Make sure today, when you go back to your classroom, write down 2 or 3 goals that you want for your classroom, for your students. Put those somewhere where you can see them, and you can review them on a regular basis. It's going to make you more engaged in your school year, and that's going to bring you more happiness. Now, so strategy number 1 was see. Strategy number 2 is engage, right? Strategy number 3 is connect. So I want us to, I've got to grab a sip of water. So when it comes to connecting, there's one way that we can connect on a much greater level. And when I'm talking about connecting, I'm talking about connecting with friends, connecting with your students. And one of the greatest ways to do that is to have more fun. Now, if you're going out with your friends this weekend, you say, I'm going out with my friends this weekend and we're going to have so much. Yeah, I think I heard beer, but fun was the answer I was looking for. And so we can have so much fun when we, one of the great ways to connect is to have fun. You know, they say that children under the age of 5 laugh or smile 400 times a day. By the time we reach age 35, it is down to 15 times a day. That is pathetic. I have counted the number of laughs in this talk. You guys don't even have to crack a smile till next week, and you're still going to beat the national average. So we've got to have more fun. We have become so uptight, and people are attracted to fun. I don't know what your name is, Mr. Are you what, the Incredible? Mr. Incredible? I mean, how fun is that? I mean, I would guess his students absolutely love him. Yeah, stand up, come on, man. Now that is fun right there. That is fun. All you guys who got dressed up, that's fun. And we are attracted to fun. That's why Ellen DeGeneres has like 4 shows. And she's asked to MC all these award shows. That's why Tina Fey and Jerry Seinfeld are paid millions and millions and millions of dollars in endorsements because they're fun. They connect with people. What do you think the longest running show in the history of television is? Saturday Night Live. Yeah, whoop whoop. All those Saturday Night Live fans out there. Yeah, we are attracted to fun. We want to have fun. And it's another way that we engage. When we're talking about engagement, I have to tell a story. When I really wanted to have fun and engage with my students, most people think I learned about, the big thing right now is employee engagement. In fact, I don't even know if I want to try to mess with showing you the slide. It is kind of interesting. No, I don't want to show you that slide. It's the statistics that Gallup has come up with on employee engagement in corporate America and teacher engagement based on full-time teachers in the United States. 29% of corporate America is actively engaged. 30% of teachers are actively engaged. So you're higher on that. The middle part is just people who consider themselves engaged. They're not really excited, but they show up, and that's about similar. Teachers are a little bit higher. And then there is the actively disengaged. Those are the people who really don't want to be there. Those are the people who can tell you how many days and hours until they retire. We're like, just go ahead and go now, okay? So again, we want to get engaged with our students. My first year teaching, I was teaching 10th grade English, and my students had to do vocabulary words. Now, I've been teaching for all of a month. Do you guys still have vocabulary words? Yes, you have to memorize them, know the part of speech, use them in a sentence, the definition. My students were having such a fit about it. So I decided to have some fun, get them engaged, and I let them pick their own vocabulary words. Well, back when I was teaching, we didn't have email yet. We still had actual grade books where you would write grades on a piece of paper. And so I get a pink slip in my box, which is from Mr. Barber saying I have to go to the principal's office. So I go up to the principal's office. He says, Kim, I hear you're letting students pick their own vocabulary words. I said, Mr. Barber, the vocabulary words on the list are so boring. They're words like erudite, copious, alacrity. Who uses those words? I said, my students, they are picking cool words. They picked words like bumfoozle, whirligig, poppycock, kerfuffle. Is kerfuffle not the greatest word in the whole world? You can just say it, kerfuffle. It just makes you feel happy to say it, doesn't it? Yeah. Well, my students were having a little kerfuffle over having to memorize the vocabulary words, and Mr. Barber was having a kerfuffle over the fact that I was letting them pick their own. And I thought to myself, what is the big deal? Because who's going to remember these words in 10 years anyways? Well, about 15 years after I quit teaching, I'm in the grocery store. It was a Saturday morning. I'm just looking at a bunch of bananas, and I notice there's this guy out of the corner of my eye, and he's checking me out. Buddy, I am too old for you. He's attracted in his 30s. And so I got my bananas, and I was actually, no lie, going to get some mint Milanos. So I head to the mint Milano aisle, and I'm turning, and then he's following me. I'm like, yo. I turn around and look at him, and he goes, Mrs. Hodis? And when I heard his voice, everything came back. It was Josh Epperson. He had been one of my all-time favorite students. I loved Josh Epperson. We gave each other a big hug, and then we stepped back, and he goes, Mrs. Hodis, haboob. I said, huh? Okay, Josh. And he goes, don't you remember? You let us pick our own vocabulary words. I picked haboob. It means a small dust storm. I still remember it. Yeah. Turns out you let a 16-year-old boy pick his own vocabulary word if it has boob in it. He's going to for the rest of his life. But the important part of that story is that when we have some fun and we get engaged, learning becomes easier. The lessons we learn stay with us longer and we remember more. So have some fun, get engaged, connect with the kids in your class. Have some darn fun. We have become so serious. I think one of the, I'm gonna see where so one of the ways that we can connect is, well, let me see, I gotta see, I'm sorry, okay. All right, I'm not gonna do that because I don't want to make you guys miss your lunch, right? I should get a whoop whoop for that. Whoop whoop, all right. So the last thing that I want to say about connecting, one of the great ways that we can connect is to celebrate people, lift them up, find ways to really honor who they are. Now, I have to tell you, I only taught 5 years. I taught 5 years, and that's because I had 4 kids in 5 years. I mean, they were like, every year I had maternity leave. They were like, just, you've got your own preschool now, just go away. But I was 23 years old, the first year that I taught. I taught some seniors, they were like 18. I taught in Arizona in a really small community. Some of the seniors were like 20. I didn't ask how they got there still in school, but I'm like, I was closer in their age than I was to my husband. So the only way we had to communicate with parents back then, people obviously had landlines for phone, but most of the time we just wrote notes. We didn't have email. And again, about my second month of teaching, I realized the only time I was sending a note home was when a student had done something wrong. I wasn't sending notes home saying, oh, your kid's great. I was sending notes home when there was a problem, homework wasn't being done, they were acting out, they were coming late to class. And so I decided that, again, I wanted to connect. I wanted to make my job better for me and better for them. So I decided that I was going to, for all my 6 class periods, once a week, I was going to send a positive note home about one of those students. I had a student, Jason Laylock. Now, there was not a lot to write home about Jason. And one week, Jason had made it to class by Wednesday. He'd been there 3 days in a row, and he'd been on time. And I was like, buddy, this is your week. You are getting the note. Got his friends involved. I said, Jason, you're going to make sure he is on time and in class every day this week. And I said, Jason, on Friday, I'm sending a note home to your mom telling her how awesome you are. Jason was early to class. He showed up, and this is the note. And so I sent home a note for Jason. Oh, come on. So I sent home a note to Jason's mom. The next week, Jason brings me back a note. And this was the note from his mother. Kind of cracks me up. I kept her note forever, and she kept my note forever. Who knows if she still has mine? But again, it's a way we can connect, is to lift everybody up. And the great news is that when we lift up our students, when we lift up our co-faculty members, when we lift up our administration and use that positive language, we get lifted up as well. There was a wise Indian shaman that said, the subconscious mind can't tell between criticism of another and criticism of oneself. So anything we block for somebody else, we block for ourselves. But conversely, anytime we celebrate and lift up another person, we also get lifted up. So connect with your students. Find ways to celebrate them and lift them up. So that's our third strategy, connect. So we've got see, we've got see, we've got engage, and we've got connect. Yes. The fourth strategy is forgiveness. Now, that might sound a little bit heavy, but guess what? The research will bear me out. Again, we've all got a reason that we would need to forgive. I've heard the whole story of forgiveness. Not refusing to forgive somebody is like drinking poison and think it's going to harm the other person. But when we can forgive, that's when we can really become happier. My forgiveness story starts with that personal tragedy that I mentioned that affected my husband and I. It was the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, and we had 4 kids under the age of 5. Chelsea was 18 months old, had a 6-month-old, 3-year-old, and a 5-year-old. And we took her to the doctor because she was on her 2nd round of antibiotics, and they didn't seem to be working. And when we left the doctor that day, we found out that Chelsea didn't have strep throat. Chelsea had leukemia. Now, at that point, childhood leukemia had a 70% cure rate, so we were very hopeful. 4 days at the hospital, we found out Chelsea didn't have childhood leukemia. Chelsea had monosomy 7, the worst kind of adult leukemia in an 18-month-old. We were on a roller coaster of up and down. One day the doctor walks in and he says, "Kim, we have a miracle. 2 of your children are perfect match bone marrow donors to Chelsea. We can take our pick." And so they picked my son, who was about 9 months old, 10 months old at the time. He donated bone marrow to Chelsea on his first birthday. On the day he turned a year old, Chelsea was 2 and 2 months. And so we were excited. We had a perfect match. There was like a 1 in 3 million chance of that happening, to have 2 of our kids match. And she got her bone marrow transplant. We were excited. And 2 weeks later, they told us she relapsed. She had a 1% chance. And I said, "Bring it. I got the high happiness set point, right? Bring it. Somebody's got to be in there. Why not us?" But on the night of January 21st, my husband and I sat on the 10th floor of the Minnesota Pediatric Bone Marrow Transplant Unit with our 2-year-old between our knees, holding her as she took her last breath. I remember after she took her last breath, I looked up and I said, "God, breathe life into her, bring her back." That wasn't her journey. Her journey was over. Ours was just beginning. Take a deep breath with me. The morning after she died, we were at the Ronald McDonald House, where we'd been living for about 4 months. My mom was with us, and she took the other kids out to the playground, and my husband looked at me and he said, "Life is never going to be the same." I said, "You are right. Life is never going to be the same." And when we got home, life was worse. Everything reminded me of Chelsea. I had these 3 other little kids to try to take care of. I was in such deep grief. I didn't know if I was going to come out of it. Now, oftentimes we don't give men enough credit for how to handle their emotions and how to handle grief. My husband knew exactly what he needed. It was a brand new Heritage Softail Classic Harley Davidson. In fact, somewhere out here, I have got our Christmas card. So this was our Christmas card that year. He went on a motorcycle trip with 2 of my teaching buddies who had the summer off. He took 3 weeks off and they traveled around the country. And when he roared back into our driveway, he was like a different man. He had found peace on that trip. And so I thought, well, maybe that's what I need. Maybe I need to go on a trip. That very week, I get this flyer in the mail for a seminar in Carmel by the Sea, California, called "In Celebration of Your Total Womanhood." Well, I was not celebrating anything in life at that moment, but I decided I would go. Don't remember much about the event except the final night. The last night, they bring in a man named Rob. Now, he was kind of like the Dr. Phil of the day. He was the counselor therapist to all the movie stars in Hollywood, and he happened to be personal friends with the women running this retreat. There were about 15 of us at the retreat. So that night after dinner, starting about 8 o'clock, he goes around the table, and he's giving each woman this little private 20-minute therapy session. They're crying, and they're getting all these ahas, and they're laughing, and having this great experience, and I'm over there just like, what's he going to say when he gets to me? Well, I happen to be sitting on his right side, so by the time he gets all the way around to me, it's about midnight. He looks at me and he says, I feel such deep grief coming from you. I'd like to do your session in private in your hotel room. I thought, yeah, buddy, I bet you would. So, once I had cleared it with the woman running the seminar, it was safe to take this guy up to my room. Now, he was like a lumberjack. He was like 6'5", he was Italian, he had this long Italian hair, he was this huge man. So we go up to my hotel room. We're talking on the way, and I'm telling him everything that's happened about Chelsea's death. When we get up to the hotel room, he says, I want you to go into the bathroom with me. Now, it was an old hotel. I know, the story keeps getting weirder. It's this old hotel, and it hadn't been renovated, and there was this little tiny bathroom, and there was this little vanity, and there was a sink, and so I'm squished in here, and he says, I want you to take your right eye and look into your left eye, and I want you to tell Chelsea that you forgive her. I said, forgive Chelsea? It was cancer, it wasn't her fault. He said, you know that up here, but up right here, you're still angry at her for all the pain that she has caused you and her siblings and your husband, and you gotta forgive her for that. You gotta let that go. And then he looked at me and he said the words that changed everything. He said, and after you forgive Chelsea, Kim, you've got to forgive yourself. Because Chelsea's the one that died. You're the one that's quit living. And I'll tell you, something inside of me broke. And I started to sob. Not like I've seen a few of you wiping your eyes. This is like the snot is coming down your face. You're like, ah, ah. And I was just sobbing, and I got crying so hard, my body was going back and forth, and I'm racked in this little vanity above the sink, and I'm like, ah, ah, ah. And all I could think is, I wonder what the people in the next room think is happening in this bathroom at 1 o'clock in the morning. I know the next time they checked in, they were like, oh, I want that room. But again, for me, I forgave. And when I forgave, I got my life back. That's what forgiveness is back. You do forgiveness for you. You don't do forgiveness for the person you're forgiving. They may be alive or not. You don't have to reconcile your relationship with them. You do forgiveness so you can get your life back, so you can get your happiness back. Research will back me up that when we forgive, we become happier, we become healthier, we become calmer. Surprisingly, one thing they didn't expect in the research was that it increases our self-esteem. So forgive for you. Bill Clinton asked Nelson Mandela once, how were you able to forgive the people that had imprisoned you for all those years? And Nelson Mandela said, I realized as I walked out that gate, if I continued to hate those people, I was still in prison. When we forgive, we set ourselves free. Do any forgiveness work you need to do, and you will become happier. All right, fifth strategy. Fifth one's a good one. Gratitude. Say it with me. Gratitude. We've got to practice gratitude. And what happens so often, we've all got things we can be grateful for. It's great. Wait, you guys all got like $1,000 raise this year? Did I hear that right? Yeah. Whoop, whoop. Come on, man. You got $1,000 raise. Whoop, whoop. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff we can be grateful for. The problem comes, we've got to be grateful for the stuff that isn't so good. Right? I want you right now to think of the two most painful experiences in your life. Think back in your past. Think of the two most painful experiences of your life. And then I want you to think of the two experiences where you have grown the most, learned the most, stretched the most. For how many of you did those match up? Yeah. We don't grow on vacation. We grow when we are in the thick of it. We've got to be grateful for all the experiences that life gives us. I call it AFO, another fun opportunity. Yeah, we've got to be grateful for all of it. And when we embrace all of that, that's when we can become the happiest. I want to let you know that I have a table out there. I did my slide. slide too early again. If I could back it up. Okay, here's my joke, all right? Today I have a book that's my award-winning book on how to be successful and happy, 33 strategies. I have a quote book. How many of you like quotes? I love quotes. I have teachers that have bought this book, and every week they put a new quote up. I'm a maniac about quotes. So you get a quote book, and then you get a whoop whoop bookmark. All that for $200. I ruined my joke because I showed you the slide. It's actually only 20. But I will be out there if you're interested in that. And then I also have my bracelets, which I am totally passionate about, my white stone bracelets. And this is the final story that I want to tell you. Before I do, I also want to tell you, I have some sign-up sheets out there. If any of you are interested, if you want to leave me your email, or if you have a business card, or if you want to write it on a piece of paper and leave it back there, I will send you a password-protected page on my website sometime next week after we get all your email addresses in. And it has all kinds of resources on how to be happier, how to have more fun, forgiveness strategies, all kinds of things that we've talked about here that can help you in your life. So if you want that information, just leave me your email address. It can be your school address or your personal address, whatever you want to give me, and I will get that information to you. So, final story has to do with these white stone bracelets. And it was a story about my daughter Chelsea. After I came home from California, the same thing kind of happened to my husband that happened to me. I came home from that trip, I walked in the house, and my husband was like, "What happened to you?" I said, "Honey, I met this 6'5" Italian man, and he came up to my hotel room one night." And then I realized that probably wasn't what I should have led with. But things did change for me, but I still had a lot of grieving to do. And I started to find white stones every place that I went. Not a pile of white stones. Like, I would be walking through the grocery store parking lot and there would be a white stone. I'd be at the playground, right next to the slide would be a white stone. I just started finding white stones everywhere I went. And I started picking them up because I felt like there was a message for me, but I didn't know what that message was. It was about 2 months later, and a big old pile of white stones, and I was in church. It was a Sunday morning, and we had a guest pastor. And she was speaking that morning on the story of David and Goliath. And she said, most people have heard this story, and of course we all associate David with the underdog. David is that spirit inside of all of us that can triumph over evil, that can do more than we imagine. Goliath represents those giants in our life. Maybe it's a health crisis, maybe it's a financial crisis, maybe it's a failed relationship, or the loss of somebody that we dearly love. But what nobody ever talks about are those white stones that David used to slay Goliath. And they have a message for us as well. And I knew that message was not something she had written for that Sunday sermon. I knew what was coming next was my message from Chelsea. And she said, those white stones represent our ability to slay any giant, overcome any obstacle, and create a life we love. Create a life where we are happy and joyful and connected. That was what Chelsea was saying to me. Mom, you gotta move on. Get back to your happy place. Create a life you love. And that is my message to each of you beautiful teachers here. Make this the best year you've ever had. Create a classroom you love. Create a school you love. Create a district you love. Create a life that makes you happy and you love living. This is it. Make it count. Thank you so much.